Hustle time!
Hello and welcome to episode 46 of Retro Recall the PS1 Chronicles, a show where we play and rank every PlayStation game ever created. My name is Jimmy, and as always, I'm here with Mike.
Hello. So this week we have a very interesting one. We have a Samurai Gunman. Now, what was the thought process behind this one?
So it's actually kind of funny. I had this in a list of games I wanted to do for our old show.
Oh, okay.
And I found it by Googling the weirdest PS1 games.
Well, you hit the nail on the head with this one.
Yeah, it's just so just out there. And obviously, you know, I love the weirdness. I know you do too, but this is just like so wacky. And like, yeah, I just always had the name burned into my brain because I was like, I think I was going to incorporate it into like the next season we were doing, which I don't remember what it was at this time, but
what we were working on were RPGs. So I think it was probably right after that one.
Yeah. But yeah, so I've just been thinking about this game for a long time. I've always wanted to put it in this show, but never really found the right time. And there was always like, I'd rather play this right now, or like, you know, horror month, whatever reason. But here it is now. And I'm sure we both have a lot to say about it.
Yes.
So let's just jump right in.
Saddle up, cowboy. It's about to be a bumpy ride.
Wow. All right. Rising Zan, the Samurai Gunman, was released on September 30th, 1999. It was developed by UEP Systems.
Yeah.
I don't remember how to say this again.
That's close enough.
So this is their first game after moving on from Cool Borders 1 and 2, which is interesting. So the game was published by Age Tech, which I've seen their logo, but I'm not familiar. This is an action game, which is pretty broad. When doing some research, a lot of people seem to think this is one of the first in the whole, they call it character action games.
Oh, okay.
Which is like Devil May Cry, Bayonetta, stuff like that.
Oh, okay. So it's like I get what you're trying. I can't put it into words, but I know exactly what you're saying.
Yeah. The genre, literally, people call it now. It's called character action, but it's like those like stylish action games where you're focused on a main character. You know, it's about being stylish and cool, and like there's just a specific vibe.
Yeah.
And this game definitely has it.
Oh, yes. Now, whenever I started up the game and I saw the UEP Systems logo, I immediately just dread came over top of me. I'm like, no, this is going to be so bad compared, like seeing what they did with Cool Borders. I'm just like, I don't have high hopes for this game.
Yeah, I was actually surprised to find that out. I didn't even remember when I was playing it. I only remembered it whenever I was doing the script, or not the script, the rundown.
Yeah.
So jumping into it, right off the bat, when that intro song starts playing, you know you're in for something.
So after seeing the logo, I'm like, oh man, that intro song kicks and that intro kicks in, and I'm immediately back on board. I'm like, okay, I know what they're going with. Then we'll get more into this later, but I play the training mode, and then it takes me out of it again. I'm like, oh, damn it. Then we get back into the game, and like, okay, I'm back on board. Like, I flip-flopping the entire time getting into this game.
Yeah, I mean, I obviously did the training mode first as well. I mean, there's a lot to this game.
Yes.
It's almost like there's simultaneously so much and so little.
Wow. That is the best way to phrase that. Yes. You get so used to just like not that much going on, and then all of a sudden you get steamrolled with so much you have to do. But I don't want to get too far. Let's start with the beginning.
Yeah, I was literally just about to say, like, without going too far into it right off the bat, I just think the mechanics of this game, while there are a lot of them, you really don't need most of them.
No, not at all. I mean, and the training does a good job of literally training you on what to do. And surprisingly, you use every single button on the controller. Like, we don't talk about that, or we always talk about how they don't utilize every button. This game takes full advantage of every single button on that thing.
Yeah, that's true. Like every episode, it feels like we're like, why didn't they map this? And then we're like, oh, they only use like the face buttons and one other button, you know, like why wouldn't you? But I think almost, if not every single one you use for something, which is very cool, but it is a lot.
It is. And we're definitely digging into that later. But the whole backstory with this is you were a cowboy and then...
Named Johnny.
Yeah, Johnny. And then you get trained for some reason by samurais, and then you become a cowboy samurai. And your whole thing is to take out the bad guys in your town.
And you also want to be super sexy and cool.
Oh yeah, what was the super sexy? There's a big title for that. What was it?
I don't remember it off the top of my head, but he just goes on and on about how he just wants to be so cool.
Yeah, that beginning scene whenever he comes in, that guy on the horse starts shooting at him. I'm like, this is rough. But then that whole line of like, oh, I'm not Johnny, I'm Zan, the super sexy blah 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 blah. I'm like, okay, I know exactly what they're going for now, and I'm ready for this game.
I absolutely loved it because the way the guy responded, he was like, what are you talking about, dude?
Yes, that was it. Yeah. Just like, what the hell are you talking about? And then he does like that anime run away from the camera to.
Well, there's another scene later too where he saves a bunch of girls and they're like, oh, Johnny. And he's like, who's Johnny? I'm Zan. And they're like, Johnny, what are you talking about? I was your neighbor. Do you not remember me? And he's like, whatever.
Aside from the absurdity, they literally go all in on this. The comedy on point, the craziness, the absurdity, everything is just, they're like, hey, we're going into this. Let's just crank it up to 11 and just don't hold back at all.
It doesn't happen often, but I legitimately thought this game was funny. Like, I actually laughed at it.
Yeah. The biggest thing too is like, so you and some other people you save can speak English, but then these creatures just like make these sounds kind of. They don't really speak at all.
They do speak. I have something to say about that.
Wait, do they?
Okay. So later on, I don't know if you got to this, you fight this old woman, and when she speaks, she just says kimono over and over again, and she's wearing a kimono.
Oh, yeah. But then the subtitles underneath are saying other things, right?
Yeah. It reminds me of like Team America.
I was just about to say that, yeah.
Yeah, where they're all just like saying gibberish instead of like speaking an actual language.
Yeah. And then they swear too. There's a lot of swearing in this that I was not expecting.
But it's all like bleeped out.
Well, not all of it. Like they'll say like bastard and stuff like that. But
yeah, but like, you know, shit and fuck are both bleeped out.
Yeah. The first time they got to the first censored word, I lost it. I was laughing so hard.
It's just ridiculous because like this is not a game for kids. So like, why are you doing that? It's clearly just for the comedy of it, which I enjoy.
Yes, very much so.
But no, like as far as all that stuff goes, the music, all of that stuff, it's all just perfect.
I'm so glad you're on the same page. Going into this, I'm like, this is going to be a very positive episode from the beginning because of how everything is designed. I'm trying not to like jump ahead too far because there's so much more I want to say. But yeah, so the way it starts in the beginning is like you're fighting these little mobs trying to get to the boss. But the one thing is I found the farther you get into the game, the less that is a thing. How far did you make it, by the way?
I beat level 7 just before we started.
Okay. I made it to level 8. I was on the final boss and I died. And I was done because we were about to start anyways, and I wasn't going to put in any more time.
That is so nice because I was expecting you to say, oh, I made it to level 5 or something. Like
I almost gave up on level 5. We can get to that too, but
it's just been a while since we both played almost the exact same amount of a game.
Yes. And actually, there's only 9 levels, so I was very close to beating the game. And I thought I was really, really, really close, but that level 8 was just dragging on for so long.
Since you got as far as me, we can go through each level then if you want. But like, I almost stopped playing multiple times throughout this. I ended up using some save states as well, just because I wasn't going to play the whole level again. I just couldn't do it.
That's a big thing, is that there's no checkpoints in this entire game. So you die on a level, you're back at the beginning of the level. When we talk about level 5, that becomes a nuisance. But
I'm trying to remember what level 5 is. Is level 5 the minecart level?
Yeah.
Okay. Then yes. Oh boy. All right. Before we go through all the levels, let's just talk about the controls a little bit and like just the general mechanics. Because like before we deep dive, we should really try and talk about all the different things you actually do in this.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Before we get into the negatives, I do want to say the fighting and the gunplay feels pretty good for the most part.
Mm-hmm. When you use your gun, you can't move. And if you keep mashing the X button for the sword, katana, you are kind of locked in place and you can't move anyway. So there's times when you're like swinging and you're stuck there and you have to wait until you get out of that before you can continue on or dodge an attack.
Yeah. And a lot of it is, for me, I just tanked a lot of attacks. I mean, there's a block, but I never really used it because, like, in the heat of the moment, I didn't ever thought of it.
Yeah, there's plenty of times when I was constantly getting hit by stuff trying to dodge it. I'm like, oh yeah, I have a dodge or a block attack. And I think it's because the last game we just played, Crisis Beat, didn't have a block, so it wasn't in my brain that I can block.
That's true. That might have been it too. But honestly, I'm just used to in games just tanking the hits and just going. But the number one issue with this, and it's with so many games we play from this era, is the camera is just a fucking nightmare.
The worst enemy in this game is the camera.
It is just so bad. And you hit L1 and it'll allow you to lock on to an enemy. And that's very helpful when you're fighting a boss or when you want to shoot someone far away. But if you hold L1, it recenters the camera and you're going to spend a lot of time hitting that button.
There's so many times when I would recenter it and then the camera decides, hey, we're going to flip back the other way because I was probably too close to the wall or something. So the amount of times I fought bosses and bad guys just off screen below me, I don't know where they are. I'm just mashing buttons hoping I'm hitting them, because to stop attacking and hold the camera button to recenter it would have cost me more life and more hits.
It's just a little insane to me because you can't block effectively. It makes dodging even harder because sometimes where the camera is and where you're facing, you think you're going to hit dodge one way, but you're dodging the other way.
Completely agree. And it sucks too, because a big mechanic too is, aside from dodging, you can hit projectiles back to enemies. But if you can't see the projectiles coming towards you, then you can't use that tactic at all.
It's so funny because after the tutorial, I never did that again one single time.
I did a few times.
I honestly completely forgot. Like, I just completely forgot that it existed because you're just fighting the camera. So, like, I'm already worried about not dying. I don't know, the idea of getting the camera set up exactly the right way to be able to hit those projectiles back, just not worth it. I'd rather just take the hit or just, like, jump or dodge.
I agree. It's just, I really think the camera destroys this game. For how fun it is, the camera just brings it down by so much.
The worst part is, like, I don't really know in this era what they could have done to fix it either.
Yeah. I mean, you could have had it where the camera's just always behind you. And then you can kind of like, I think Bugs Life had it where you could lock the camera and spin it around to look. That could be the best way because you always want to see in front of you. So I don't know why it's just not permanently locked behind you.
It's wild because, like, this makes the camera from Medieval look amazing.
I was going to ask you, comparatively, since you complained about that so much, which one is worse?
I think if this had that camera system, it'd be a better game.
Yes.
It needs to be either locked behind you, a fixed angle, or just something, because it makes it way too hard. Devil May Cry, for example, you know, the game that probably took a lot of cues from this. It has a mixture of fixed angles and behind the back stuff, which is what this should have had.
Yeah, even the fixed angle, I think that would be the easiest solution. So you're not constantly having a camera behind you. There were times whenever I can't even recall when it happened, but I was trying to run towards the camera. And I think my guy was literally stuck hitting the camera and the camera wasn't moving backwards. So I was almost stuck in the level.
Well, what this game likes to do is when you're fighting a boss, there's always stuff running at you, whether it's the boss, whether it's things they're bringing in. It makes it almost impossible to stay, like, locked on or even just be able to fucking see them. So, like, for example, you fight two robots in this game and they are constantly doing these attacks where they run around the arena.
Yeah.
I would find myself, I dodge the first one, then I try and look where they are. And by the time I get the camera turned, I'm already hit again.
Yep. Exactly my situation too. And if there's like two bosses, the two samurai guy or not the two sumo guys.
Yeah.
If you're trying to hit the one and then you turn your camera, one of them's either coming at you from the front or the side, and you're like, I don't know how I'm supposed to beat this boss because I just can't see them and I don't know what to do.
Luckily, the bosses don't take a egregious amount of hits to kill. Honestly, I thought the levels were harder than the bosses for the most part.
Kinda. I just found like nothing was ever too difficult. With the bosses, like any other game, once you realize their patterns, you know what to do and you're done.
Yeah, I mean, the only level I struggled on truly was level 5.
Oh, okay. I mean, I did die a lot, but 5 was almost my breaking point to get by it.
No, I mean, I definitely died a few times, but it wasn't like, I wasn't mad at it. It was like, oh, this is my fault for dying.
Or the camera's fault for you dying.
You know what I mean.
Yeah. Second up to the worst system in this is the locking system. It's pretty much you hit L1 to lock onto them, but it's only green, which is not a permanent lock onto them. You have to do that temporary lock and then attack for it to turn red, and then it becomes a permanent lock onto them.
I did not know that.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're watching your footage now and see how it's red right now. That way, when you run around him, you're always locked onto him. But if you get hit by anything, you lose your lock and you have to re-lock on and then re-attack with that lock to make it red again.
That really explains why I was so annoyed with the lock-on system, because that is fucking dumb.
It is. It's not so bad when it's a one-on-one fight, but when you have multiple enemies and you're trying to get a single lock, by the time you get the green lock and you go to attack to get the red lock, the second enemy hits you and you lose the permanent or the temporary lock you even had in the first place. So between those two systems, those annoyed me so much in this game.
Yeah, and not to get ahead of ourselves, but like I really wanted to like this game a lot more than I feel like I did.
Mm-hmm.
The personality and the style of it is amazing, and there's a lot of stuff that is good, but the core systems are just so bad that I wouldn't say I was mad playing it, but like I just knew that I wasn't having as much fun as I could have, you know?
100%. If this had a better lock-on system and a better camera, it would probably be very, very high up on almost in the top 3, probably.
I agree.
Those are the 2 top bad systems that you'll encounter, unfortunately. And they're the 2 main ones. So for your 2 main systems to be poorly designed, it just is rough.
Yeah, I mean, the act of actually playing it other than that stuff feels good. Like the combat feels good. Like it doesn't feel too cheap or any, like we've already said this stuff, I guess, but it just, those 2 things really just take everything good about when you're playing it and just put this stink over it. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Again, best way you could describe that. So what did you think about the platforming then?
It could have been worse.
Yeah. For me, that's the third worst is the platforming. Jumping around isn't bad, but when you have to be precise with your jumping, it is rough.
Luckily, you don't do it that often.
Yeah, in the entire playthrough, there's only like 2 platforming sections I could think of off the top of my head. So not bad.
Yeah, it was like when you're jumping over the like laser floor or whatever.
Yeah, the first is early on with a fire floor. Second is later on with an electric floor. So same concepts, just later on.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely not good, but it's not, I don't know, it's not so bad that I would compare it to the camera and the lock-on.
Yeah, no. It's definitely, it's top 3 for me. But
yeah,
because you do it so rarely, it's just, I can forgive it. If they had just straight up one level where you're platforming the entire time, it'd probably be a different conversation we're having, but I think they might have known, and that's why they held back on those.
Yeah, I mean, if there was a level like that, that's where I probably would have stopped playing.
I agree. Fortunately, they have a double jump, which is really nice.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's fine for what it is. It's not a major part of the game, so I can't really be too mad about it. I understand why they wanted to mix it up a little bit, which is nice, but if there was any more of it than there is, it would be a real problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, so what did you think about the whole thing where you have to push every single button really fast?
It's like the quick time events.
Yeah, I mean, they happen randomly in the levels, and then at the end of every boss, you get to do like a special combo at the end on them.
Kind of like a Mortal Kombat fatality type thing.
Yeah.
It was fine. So did you make it to the part with the bell? I don't know if that was in 7 or 8.
I don't think I did.
Where like you come up to this like sacred bell and you ring it and 3 green ninjas pop down.
No, I didn't do that.
Okay, that was probably an 8 then. So, I mean, it adds like a little level of comedy because they're like, how dare you ring the sacred bell? And so then they get on one side of the bell and you're on the other side.
No, I do remember this. You're right. Yeah.
And they're literally using the one guy as a battering ram to slam into the bell and you're fighting them to who can ring it the most.
No, I actually liked it. I thought it was a nice little way to mix it up.
And there's times too, specifically on level 5 with like the giant flamethrower cannon. And they're like, oh, you can't get past this. And I'm like, I legitimately was like, oh shit, I don't know if I can get by this. I don't know how we're supposed to do this. And then it turned into a quick time event. I'm like, oh, cool. It's much easier.
Yeah, no, I mean, I can understand why people, like a lot of people, don't like QuickTime events, but I think when used sparingly in a normal game, they're fine.
But I will say it's not, we're using the term QuickTime event because that's the easiest way to compare it. In reality, they say it's happening. They give you like 3 seconds to prepare for it to happen. So it's not like, oh, hurry up and push X right away out of nowhere. Like you have to, it's like, all right, here we go. We're about to do this. Get ready.
That's true. I guess I wouldn't necessarily say this is a QuickTime event in the traditional sense, but regardless, I think it's fine. And I think at the end of the level, it really means nothing. So like, you're kind of just messing around.
Mm-hmm. I was thinking about it as like, wow, they really want us to buy a new controller because this is probably going to destroy it.
Yeah, I mean, I was really going at it.
Me
honestly.
too. And I never got really understood the fatality type thing. Like I just spammed all the things, and by the end of it, I would get, I think the highest I ever got was like maybe 1,200, 1,300 when you're doing the X square really fast.
Yeah. I don't know if there's a combo or anything. I think it's literally just supposed to be random.
I guess. But then it's like, I do it and it says weak. And I'm like, what did I do that was weak? Am I missing something that I should have been doing?
Well, I think that's your stats for the whole level, not just that.
Oh, okay.
Because it'll show like, I think it's your percentage of hits with your gun and with your swords. And it shows all that stuff and then it gives you a rating.
Do you remember what like your highest rating was?
I got one that said like hero or something.
Nice. Yeah, I got hero too. I don't know what the ranking is, but the one I got was like super sexy hero or something. So that must be bigger. All right, I guess I did really good this level. I don't know what I did differently, but
yeah, I don't really know. I think it's probably just playing efficiently and making sure you land all your hits and like not taking a ton of damage, I guess. Saving all the hostages, which you also do for some reason.
Oh yeah, I forgot about the hostages. Yep, that's another part of this game.
Well, you save them, but there's no penalty for not saving them. And I don't really know what the point is because you don't see your points when you're playing. So
I will say one thing I love about this game, whenever I immediately jumped in, there's no score system. I feel like this game could easily have one and they decided not to. So that's a huge props on my end.
Do you not get a score at the very end of the level though?
At the end of the level, but not like Crisis Beat where it gives you a score at the top and it's like, oh, how high is your score going to be?
Yeah. No, you're right. That is good. I think that's just an outdated system. So for them not to have it is cool.
Exactly. But yeah, I can't think of much more. We pretty much covered everything. So do you want to go level by level?
We can. I mean, just right off the bat, I think there's 2 levels that stand out to me. No, there's 3. 3 levels that I have things significant to say about, good or bad. So I'll let you start it off.
So with the first level, like we said, you're pretty much in your town. It's right after you talk to the guy on the horse. And I feel like this is just a tutorial level.
Yeah, it's very straightforward.
And I feel like with this one, it's like, okay, we're a cowboy. We're in a cowboy Western town. This makes sense. And it's not until you like meet the first boss and he's like this. And all the ninjas have like one eye on their head. That's kind of funny.
I didn't even notice that.
But there's really not much to this. It's you get through the level, you chase down the bad guy, and then you do a boss fight. That's the first level in a nutshell.
Yeah, I mean, it's the introductory level. There's not really too much to it, but it is a good way to get you into the game. So I don't really have much to say about it.
I don't either. So then, second level.
Yeah, so this is where I died for the first time.
Yep.
It is interesting, though, because they mix it up right off the bat. Like, the second level is this weird thing where a bomb is going to go blow up the town. You have a timer and you have to destroy it in that amount of time.
And I think this is why I died too, because I wasn't expecting just a quick jump into something different. Like typically games will be like, oh, we're going to do the same thing for a little bit. Now here's something different. This is like, nope, level 2, we're changing it up already. But the biggest annoyance for me in this one was the yellow force field.
Yeah, it's like they wait, because it's not till you kill all the enemies, right? Or is it?
For it to go away.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you're chasing down this, I think they call it the detonator. You have to chase it down, and as you're running down, it just magically traps you into these bubbles. And you got to beat all the enemies for the bubble to go away. So you got to do it fast, or else the guy's just going to get so much lead time on you. And that's where my problem was in the beginning, I was fighting those, what would you call them? The training dummy things?
Yeah. Little sticks.
I thought there was an end to that, and so the detonator's just walking along, just doing his own thing, and I'm stuck in the beginning trying to fight these things until I realized they just keep coming. So I just ran, and it was too late at that point.
That happens a lot with those things. Like, you never know when they're going to stop spawning, because sometimes they do and sometimes they don't.
And there's other enemies that also act that way too. So it's just, you got to learn when you can just ignore them and keep running, or when you have to actually fight.
Yeah, I mean, but overall, I think this is a cool second level. Like, I don't really have too much more to say about it. I think it's promising to see them mix it up immediately.
Mm-hmm.
So level 3, I don't really have much to say about either. It's kind of just another level, right?
So I love how we say how much like variety there is, then we immediately just go, yeah, these first 3 aren't like super great. I honestly can't remember what 3 is.
I mean, 3 is pretty much the same thing as the first level. You're just inside of like a castle.
Oh, yeah. And then the boss is those 2 samurai or the sumo guys, right?
Yes.
Okay. Wow, I don't really remember this at all.
Yeah, I guess our point does not stand, but I don't know. To have a regular level to open, then a unique concept, and then another normal level, that's good to me.
Yeah. I think this was in 7 when these guys come back.
I think so. I don't remember. We'll see when we get there.
Yeah. So then there's 4.
Yeah, and this was the first one that stood out to me. This was the train level.
Yeah, this was okay. Yeah, and I agree. Like, I thought it was going to be something a little bit different when you're riding your horse next to the train in the cutscene. I thought maybe, do you have to ride and like dodge things and then maybe jump onto the train afterwards? I was kind of disappointed it wasn't that, but changing up the environment completely, getting out of those temples and whatnot, I loved it.
Yeah, fighting your way through a train is like classic action movie stuff, and I love that. There's like a few different unique parts too. Like, there's the one part where you have to dodge these like lasers. There's the part where you have to free prisoners with a time limit before the part of the train explodes.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, overall, I thought it was a fun level.
Although it did have, like you said, the laser grid room annoyed the hell out of me. I was so frustrated getting through that. You accomplish, like, you only have 10 seconds to make it through the maze. And then you did the exact same thing I did. You get through it the first time, you're like, oh, I got to break this wall. And then you got to go back and do it a second time now that you realize that the wall is broken.
Yep, and the second time you're a lot less careless and you just get annoyed and then you don't do it.
Yep. And then the second part that really bugged me was when you're outside and there's those towers you have to break and those spike balls just keep falling on your head.
That part was a little annoying, I'm not going to lie to you.
Oh, man. Like, trying to destroy those towers and then these like ball things are on hyper mode, just crashing down all around you. I'm pretty sure I might have actually died on that. I can't remember, but
I think I did die on this level at some point, but overall, I enjoyed it.
Yeah, it switched it up nicely, and there's really not much more to say. Like, oh, is that the boss for this?
Yeah, so this is the first time you fight the giant robot.
Ah, okay. So the boss for this one is so frustrating. There's a section at the bottom of the map. I don't know if you experienced this too, where it kept throwing you to the side wall.
I don't think so.
I wonder if mine was just glitching. Like, I was trying to chase down that robot when he was running away, and I kept like hitting what seemed like ice, and I was falling into the wall every time. It's like directly south of the generator thing.
I don't think I experienced that, but for me, once I figured out this boss, like his patterns, it was really easy.
Yeah. The biggest thing too is like, because this is the first time you get to a boss that actually recharges.
Yeah, so you have to break the things that he uses to heal him.
Yeah, and I went to like the thing as it popped out and I was hitting it, but nothing was happening. But I didn't realize, I just got to keep hitting it over and over again to get it to finally break.
Yeah, they don't really indicate that you can break it, but like once you do, you're like, yeah, of course.
Yeah. And then once you do break them, it's so simple to beat this boss. Like, we're going to say it a lot. The bosses aren't too big of a deal.
Mm-hmm. But all right, that brings us to level 5.
Oh boy. So this is another one that like really tests your patience towards the end.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about the little flamethrower thing. We talked about the first half of the level is a normal level, and then you get to the minecart.
So what was your experience with the minecart?
I used save states because I just got so annoyed.
So which part was like affected you the most?
I would say the second half, because like, so what you're supposed to do is shoot the signs.
I realized that way too late.
Then you can skip like this whole first part of it. But if you don't, it takes a lot longer and there's a lot more opportunities for you to take damage. I think once you get to that second half where you're dodging stuff while trying to kill enemies would take a lot of my health. Then you get to the boss, which is a giant train. And if you don't have health, then it's a lot harder.
Every single time. I can't even tell you how many times it took me to beat this level. whenever I got to the train part, I had a sliver of health left just because of this final part where people are throwing things at you. You need to jump, you need to shoot. And with this game, you can only push one button at a time. So it's like you can't jump while shooting. You have to jump and then go back to shooting after you log on again.
It's very much stiff and like you are committing to the action that you decide.
So is there a proper way to actually beat this part without really getting hurt?
I assume just being really good at it. I don't know.
I tried jumping over the bombs and jumping over the sticks, and it just like nothing was working at all.
Honestly, the controls are not that bad. It's just the game is asking more of you than you can provide. Like there's just nothing you can do sometimes to avoid damage.
Especially the part where you're going around in circles and things are shooting at you, fire is coming out. There's no blocking or dodging that could help you in that situation. Like the blocking could help with the bullets, but the fire, you're screwed.
Yeah, I mean, even when I was jumping sometimes, I felt like the fire was still getting me, so it didn't matter.
Exactly. Like I could never get the timing perfect to get over the fire without getting burned. And then you get to the train. And did you beat that on your first try?
Hell no, I didn't.
Okay. I'm so relieved because I guess we're more negatives. Every single time you go to shoot someone, it auto locks onto that person. So for this entire train fight, I'm firing without locking onto them because it should auto lock, like even though I'm not technically locked. But that's not what they want in this. Like you literally need to lock onto specific parts of the train. And I'm like, why do you not auto aim like you have done this entire game?
I don't even know what to say about this. It's just so ridiculous. I think it's just a little too far, and I applaud them for wanting to mix it up. But it's just a classic case of like, think about Donkey Kong Country, right? Or like any of those games. It's just, I just don't know what they want from you. Like they try and come up with this cool thing, and then it just is not fun. And the worst part is when you beat the train, then you go and fight a boss after.
Mm-hmm. I thought the train was the boss this entire time. It took me like maybe 6-7 attempts. And like we said, no checkpoints. So every time we die, back to the beginning, you gotta do it all over again. Which wasn't too bad because after the 7th time, you're kind of speedrunning and you know exactly how to kill every single person very efficiently.
Yeah, that's why I use save states, because I was not going to keep playing the whole level just to play the minecart. I was not.
I get that. But yeah, and then you finish the boss or the train mini boss and you're like, cool, now what? And then they drop you right into the next boss fight. It's like, I had no time to breathe in between these two fights.
Dude, whenever I beat the train and the little ending thing didn't happen with the finisher, I was like, oh no.
Like you forget about that giant hand that you saw earlier in the level.
I was like, oh, maybe the next level is when you fight that thing. You know?
No, I had the same exact thoughts. And this is the first time with a boss. Like each boss fight feels unique too. I don't think we said that.
They do.
This one in particular, he does this move that puts a timer on you. Did you get that?
I don't remember.
So I don't even know what the move is or what happened. Like, but the timer pops up with like 5 seconds maybe. And I don't know what the cue is, but I think you might have to hit him before the 5 seconds. But if you don't, you blow up and take a big chunk of damage off.
I am almost certain that didn't happen to me, but my biggest gripe with this one is, you know, he teleports around and it really just reveals the problems with the camera and the lock on even more.
Yeah. My technique on this one was double jump to get as far away from him as possible, which gave me enough time to either fire the gun or see where he's at or what he's doing.
Yeah, I mean, I would just do my best to find him and then just tank whatever damage I could. I just like, whenever I got to him, I think I beat him the first try because I was just like, I am not doing this again.
You were so determined.
Well, I didn't save state, so I would have had to do the whole train again too.
Yeah, I get that.
I mean, obviously you feel the same way. You would have had to do the whole fucking level again.
Yep. Now, sometimes this has happened to me where I die, but then I have an extra life. How does that happen?
I have no idea. It only happened to me a couple times. I don't know what triggers that. Maybe it's an item that you find?
Maybe.
Well, because there were items that I found that weren't healing. I just don't know what they were.
Yeah. So you get like food to heal. You get bullets to make your gun stronger. But oh yeah, we never said the gun is unlimited ammo. But you get these special bullets that have limited ammunition for them that are very strong though.
I wish there was a way to save those, because on the one level I got them and I was just trying to conserve them until I got to the boss, but I got to a point where I had to use my gun. So I'm like, I guess I'm just going to use these on this weak enemy, but
Yep. I felt the same way. But then the other thing is you get these random items and it probably says it in the manual, but I didn't know what they were. One was almost like, you know that blue bar on your screen?
Yeah.
The one item turned it green. And so when I did stuff, I guess it's like extra special attack, maybe?
yeah, because you can do special attacks. There's like a up attack where you do like a dash into an enemy. There's a spin attack.
And and then a swiping attack too.
I really only use those against bosses, but
Yeah. There's jumping combinations too, but I forgot what they were and I can't remember now, so I never used them.
But yeah, so that brings us to level 6, which is another pretty straightforward level. I don't really have much to say about this.
And this is where I started having the problems with like the two girls in blue that are like flying around the room. That's where, like I was saying, where I was trying to lock onto one, but the other one would hit me. So I'd lock onto that one, but then the other one would hit me. And I could never, ever like stand up for more than a few seconds to do what I needed to do.
Straight up, anytime you fight 2 enemies in this game, it's a nightmare.
And yeah, when they're jumping around and spinning around you, it's so hard to do anything. And I guess a big annoyance is the special rooms you have to get through. So that's one where you have to hit the button and then the timer starts and you got to run through the rooms.
Oh, yeah, you're right. Yeah.
It's kind of like a gauntlet where you have to make your way through, 5 enemies? And then if you don't do it fast enough, back to the beginning at the button. You got to hit the button again and go back through the gauntlet over again.
I did it my first try, so I wasn't too frustrated.
What?
Yeah.
I got it took me maybe 4 attempts. That final guy, I was hitting nonstop. He would not die. And I'm like 3 seconds left. I'm like, come on, do your attack so I can dodge out of the way and hit you. He wasted so much of my time every time.
I literally beat it like right at the last second. The first time I was like, thank God, because I'm not doing this again.
Yeah, just watching that timer go down is the scariest thing.
You're right. That was a cool little part, and then right after that is the bell thing that you were talking about too.
But I mean, yeah, it is cool, but it is very frustrating at the same time, which, I mean, it does add a little bit of difficulty to the game that isn't already there, which is nice.
Yeah, so that brings us to level 7, which I thought was the coolest level in the game.
Really?
Because it has all these weird mini games.
Oh, that's this one. Okay, yeah. We're like... And this is where I was like, okay, now they're starting to go back into the absurdity of the game because you have that one special room where there's a cat pitching something at you and you have to hit it at the right time.
Yeah, you're playing baseball.
Yeah, with a cat.
Funny thing, I was playing this today, right before we started, and I beat that. And then there's the other room that you have to do where you're just shooting guys while you're locked in a little box. But I went to go hit a save state real quick because I was going to go to the bathroom. And I hit the wrong button, so I had to do them both again.
Luckily, they're not that difficult.
No, I mean, after I learned it, the second time I did it really fast. But
yeah.
I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, me too. The graphics for the baseball were weird. Like, if you were trying to watch the bar on the bottom, it was really hard to get the timing right.
You have to, see when the ball's getting closer to you, then look at the bottom almost.
Yeah. I just started getting in the hang of it, of just watching the screen and never looking at the bar. And I was doing pretty well doing it that way.
I should have tried that, but I didn't. The first time I did it, I actually killed both the hostages.
Oh, can you actually kill them?
Yeah, if you hit them 3 times, you kill them.
I didn't know that.
But then the second time I did it near perfectly because I was like, all right, I just did this.
Yeah. Once you get the hang of it, it's really, really simple. And that just sums up the entire game. Once you get the hang of it, it's very simple.
True. But the one that was really cool was the slot machine.
Yes. I love that because immediately what I did was I got the 3 shrimp. And if you do that, it fills your room with shrimps and you can run around and just get full health immediately.
Yeah, I did the same thing, but with those bananas.
Oh, is that okay? I didn't want to waste more time, but I really wanted to see that green thing. What does that do?
So I did that. I did it.
Oh, okay.
And I don't know what those are.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening right now on your screen.
I collected all these, but what do they do? Because I didn't really notice a bar going up. I thought maybe this would help me figure it out.
No, it must be another health item.
That's what I was thinking. But overall, I thought this was a cool part, though.
And then there's the help me signs.
I didn't do that. I was like, I don't care about them.
I was scared. I'm like, if I do this, I'm afraid someone's going to come out and attack me and I don't want to get into a fight right now. So I'm just going to get the 7s and move on.
I mean, I assumed it was just to save hostages, but like since that really doesn't do anything, I didn't care.
True.
Yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed that level. I wish there was more stuff like that throughout it because they hint at it like there's going to be some wacky stuff, but then they don't really ever fully deliver on it until then.
Yeah, because even the boss lady's like, oh, you're never going to survive the next gimmicks. But then the next gimmick is just that slot machine room, and there's nothing more. I feel like they could have went more insane with it.
Or I just mean even in other levels they could have did it too, but
Yeah. But it makes sense for them to throw it all at you for this particular level. Like, oh, now we're going to get weird with it, even though like each one has a theme that they follow.
Yeah. And the boss for this one is just another robot. It's almost the same thing as the other one. Bucket, go ahead. What were you going to say?
Yeah. And then the last one, War 8, is pretty much like a gauntlet of boss fights. So you fight like one boss and then you go to the next room to fight the next boss and then you go to another room to fight the next boss. Luckily, they're very courteous in the amount of health items they give you because one of them is those two sumo guys again, except they're stronger. And that was just, I almost died on that. And then I finally make it to the final boss and then I just died because I wasn't ready for all the attacks. And when he switched it up on me, it killed me.
Yeah, I mean, I literally finished level 7 like 15 minutes before we were about to start. So, by the way, there's no difficulty options in this game, right?
No.
Overall, I didn't find it to be too hard.
No, it really wasn't. Like we said, two enemies on screen, like two bosses. It's kind of difficult. One-on-ones are really simple. The tip I found with being the boss was to get the lock on and then just run in a circle around them. And then when they did their attack, you stop running in a circle and you attack them, and then you keep doing that.
Typical boss behavior.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, we've talked about this for a very long time, so I don't really have much more to say. We really, really went into this one, which I was not expecting.
Yeah.
So before we get to our scores, we can take a look at a couple of reviews. And this game got a pretty wide range. Makes sense for this kind of game. It's very much, you might love it, you might hate it. You might fall somewhere in the middle, like I feel like we might. But so Electric Playground gave it a 5 out of 10. And they said, I really wanted to like this game simply because it offered the chance to play with guns and swords and as a super ultra sexy hero. But, like my wife is always telling me, ultra super sexy is just not enough these days. Rising Zan suffers from common first generation PSX game problems that didn't really cut it 5 years ago, and that certainly doesn't cut it these days. Cool idea, bad implementation.
Yep. That's all we've talked about.
Yeah, I mean, that review is pretty much a big summary, I feel like, of how we both feel about this game.
Mm-hmm.
So IGN gave it an 8.5 out of 10 and said, most of the best qualities of Rising Zan are recycled from other great games. If imitation is the sincerest form of flattery, Rising Zan pays homage to a lot of really good games. No doubt some reviewers will knock Zan for being so imitative, but the result is a genuinely enjoyable game that is, in its own way, unique.
I'm really curious to what these other games are that it recycled from, because if they do it better, I would love to play those ones.
Yeah, I mean, I can see what they mean. This is very much taking a bunch of things, putting it all into one. Like, you know, there could be a whole game just based on the sword play of this game or just the gunplay. You know what I mean? They have all this stuff in one.
Yeah.
But all right, that brings us to our scores.
Yep.
I feel pretty conflicted, but I think this whole conversation was pretty much leaning negative, but fair, in my opinion.
Agreed. It's a fun game with a lot of problems.
Yeah. Without repeating myself, I think this kind of fits where we put a lot of games in that middle of the road where there are some things it does really well, but then some things that are just unforgivable. But I do think this is on the higher end of that because of the style, the substance, a lot of the stuff it does do well. So I'm going to go with a 6.
Interesting. I had a huge range on this because I'm like, I don't really know. But like you said, this conversation was more negative than I was expecting. And as it came out, I'm like, oh yeah, I guess that was really bad. My range was between 6 and 7.5. I couldn't really tell where I wanted to put it. I do agree with you. It does have a lot of flaws, but the fact that those flaws are the core system really does hurt it a lot. So I honestly can't agree with you. I'll go with the lower end of my score and I'll go with the 6 as well.
Yeah, I mean, originally I had written down like a 6.5 to a 7, but then the more you play, the more the issues kind of take over the experience is when I slowly lowered my score.
Yeah, exactly.
When I was playing that minecart level, I was like, this might be a 5.5.
So we have, oh geez, so much.
Read them off.
We have Persona 1, Van Ark, Tetris Plus, The Next Tetris, Rayman 1, Bomberman World, and Destruction Derby.
This is the biggest tie we've had yet, and I think the 6s might be the most contested area in this whole show.
It pretty much is, yeah. I'm looking at these like games. I'm trying to think like, where does this fit into this category?
So where I'm leaning is like middle to the top.
Okay, because I was kind of leaning. I was gonna say between Persona and Van Ark.
I was thinking either there or between Van Ark and Tetris Plus.
Oh, okay. So we're pretty much just in between that little area.
I don't really feel very strongly about it, to be honest with you. So
I would say probably under Van Ark then, because Van Ark, even though very short, very simple, was smoother to play.
And this game's also short. I mean, you can beat the whole game in a little over 3 hours.
Yeah. The big thing is this has a lot of personality. And I mean, with Rayman 2, I keep wanting to push for Rayman, even though at the end of the day, I know it's not a good game. This has a ton of personality as well. But at the end of the day, core systems suck. So it can't be that high.
Like I said, I don't feel super strongly about where we put this. I think most of these games here all have significant things I like about them. Obviously, that's why they're not a 4 or a 5. And these comparisons are very hard to make, like we've been talking about for weeks now. So I think this is fair. Put it middle towards the top because I still like this game. I think it still has a lot of unique things about it, but overall, too much bullshit.
Could you imagine if they just did a remake of this game? Or even a second one? Kept everything stylistically the same, just improved upon the controls.
That would be amazing. And I would play that.
It's such a shame that like they went from Cool Borders, which was a relatively safe game, to this game, which breaks all the rules and just goes out the wall. And they kind of never went back to that.
It's kind of crazy because after this, they really only made a few more like Cool Borders games, and that was it.
I wonder if sales just weren't good for this game, and that's why, all right, we'll go back to what we know.
I mean, I can see why sales wouldn't be great because it's just a strange game. Like, how do you market this?
Yeah.
If this came out today, you know what I mean? People would love it. Like, this would be a cult classic.
100%. And it's just like back in the day, you probably wouldn't appreciate all the corniness of it.
Yeah, but now it's like, that's what I'm looking for in a game.
Exactly.
But all right, that is going to do it for us. Thank you so much for watching or listening. If you enjoyed this, please remember to like and subscribe, as well as give us a rating on podcast services. We'll see you next week.
Thank you.